What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. Today's kind of a special episode. We are over at my man Julian's house. We're working on his car. Today we are putting on this bad boy. A lot of you have asked for a Vortech Supercharger install, and I'm here to do it today, step by step, everything you guys need to know. And it also gives you the availability to DM me, to write to me, ask me questions on how to install, what you need, things like that. And I'm also going to be going over the unboxing and the step-by-step. So right now we just figured we needed to do a compression test on this engine. The engine's only got like 15,000 miles on it at max. How long you drifted it? Like a year, right?
Yeah, about a year.
Yeah, so only about 1 year of real abuse on this engine. And so we did a compression test, which is a good idea if you're gonna boost it. So I'm glad he decided to do that. We did the compression test. We got about 155 to 160 across the way, and everything else looks good. We pulled the intake off. It was super clean, no oil. He had a catch can set up, so they really do work. So anyway, we right now are going to drain the coolant. We're kind of getting it ready and prepped to put the supercharger on. And then we're going to open up this thing. So we're going to drain that real quick, and then we'll get back to you and I'll show you everything that's in this box. Okay, so we just opened up the box, and I was going to take each individual thing out piece by piece. But if you see, along with me littering, I am pulling out like little pieces each time. So I'm gonna pull them out, and then we're gonna set them down, and I'll kind of have it set out how the supercharger goes and kind of the orientation that it goes in the engine, which way it follows, and what pieces are with what. So we're gonna unwrap them all, I'll lay them out, and then I'll explain what's in there. All right, so you can see it's unboxed. During the unboxing, my man Ian showed up, and we have it all laid out. So this is pretty much the orientation of how the supercharger goes. You can see from here, this is the blower in the package, bolts to this plate, and that plate bolts to the front of the engine. And then as far as the piping goes, off the supercharger, you have the down pipe that goes around the radiator support to, this is the max flow race blow-off valve. That is the best sounding one that I've heard for any of these supercharger setups. It goes onto this pipe, and then we have the intercooler. And then to complete the circle, this goes back around, up, and this goes to the intake and to the throttle body. There is a square right here that this bolts actually to the mass airflow housing. You can get a single pipe, I forgot who makes it, but they have a hole for the mass airflow, and it's one single pipe if you want to go for a little bit cleaner look. However, this one from Vortech does work really well. The other stuff that comes with the kit, you can see you have 3 different oil changes. This is a V3 kit, so it's self-lubricating. You don't have to hook it up to anything in the engine. It's good. It's really good for drifting. You don't really get the supercharger that hot. And then if anything happens to the engine, you don't have to worry about scattered pieces from the engine going up inside your supercharger. However, the V2 setup that does go to the oil setup, it's a little bit better for cooling because you are using engine oil, and it's going through the oil cooler and stuff like that. So for like road racing applications and stuff like that, it does make it a little bit easier and a little bit more efficient to use that. But we drift, and so this works perfectly fine. You'll also get a big bag of clamps, as well as a couple bundles of different size fittings that go on all of the connections for the hoses off the supercharger, stuff like that. It also comes with this because if you look on the car, you can see the factory power steering cooler can't be mounted here because we have the intercooler that sits across here. So you actually remove these, and then you'll move it up and have it sit on the radiator. And so those things kind of push through the fins, and then you'll just push the pins together and it'll hold it there. So next, this is an FMU. It's a fuel management unit. This goes in line with your fuel, where it comes off the metal lines that are on the passenger side of the car. I'll get into this and these boxes a little bit more as we go farther along on the install. This is your secondary fuel pump. This is also mounted underneath the car, and this stuff also goes in line with this and the fuel line stuff. I'll get more into that as I put it in, so that way you can kind of see more in depth of what's going on with this. And then as it goes, you get a cool Vortech supercharged license plate frame, and then you have your fuel management box. This is a piggyback. It actually goes on your, or actually in line with your, I can't even think right now, with the electrical part. It pretty much is like for 8 sensors, mass airflow, intake air temperature, stuff like that. And this is kind of how it calculates on how much fuel to give the engine. So also more on that when I install that. This is kind of lengthy, and so I'll make sure I spend a lot of time on this thing. Then we have all the stuff from Vortech, how to install it. And then this plate, I kind of went over quickly, but it comes with the pulleys already set up, and then a Gates belt. I don't have to really do anything with it. Factory, a 3.33 6 rib, and pretty much that's the kit. I know it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot, and it's really a pretty easy bolt together application, but we're gonna be taking off the front, and then we're gonna start getting this all ran, and I'll go over it as we get going. So yeah, let's take this off the grass and let's get this started. All right, so we got the front off. Not too bad, right?
Not bad at all.
So if you watch my other videos, you know how to take the front off. I'm a big advocate of kind of pushing this off to the side without taking the power steering off. The main reason for this is so we have direct access to the front of the engine. And also, if you look in between here on the side that has all the garbage, we have to take these things off to be able to get to the fuel lines in the back. That's gonna support the fuel lines that go to the FMU that we'll be mounting here. And then the fuel line that comes across here, we'll be putting the secondary fuel pump right here. And then it'll loop back and go to the fuel line. So we have that all disassembled. Everything is pretty much ready to go, and now we're just going to unbox it and start laying stuff out, taking the belt off, taking the alternator off, taking this off, and then maybe the power steering if it's going to be easier. Disgusting. Power steering to get off to be able to get back there. So we're going to do that now, and then after I'm ready to cut and set up the fuel lines, I will show you what's going on. One thing I forgot to mention when taking this off is this idler actually goes away. We don't use this because we use this bolt to put the supercharger plate on. So what I do is I take off the 10s first and remove this so I can get to each of these 19s and pull this one off behind the power steering. And what I actually do is I actually cut this ear off so that way this still keeps, you can see there's a pretty big gap on the back here. But if we cut this ear off, then it will fill that gap just like normal, and then this will be removed. So I'm also taking that off. So now I have everything off this side. You can see way far back here is the fuel line that I'm trying to get to. There's a green clip that you squeeze on either side of these. This kind of attaches just straight like this, if I can show you. And then if you squeeze on either side where these squares are at, it'll kind of pull off, and the other one will be left on the hard line. So it's kind of deep in there. It's not easy to be able to show you, but you have to be able to separate this because we will be adding one side, cutting, putting on the other side, and then it'll add fuel lines to come to the FMU, which will be mounted right here. So now that we have access to the fuel line, I'm going to start laying that out, and I'll show you the diagram, kind of how it goes. Okay, I know it's kind of a slow process, but you can see I have the FMU is now mounted here. We have the vacuum line that'll be going up and mounting to the manifold when it's up here. And then I also have these lines. You can see each line has each different side from the fuel. However, I am going to have to cut and tee off because these actually do go and run under here to that secondary fuel pump that I was talking about earlier. So I'm mounting this, and then I'll get the diagram out and kind of explain a little bit better what's going on with these hoses. Okay, welcome back. It's day 2. Last night I tried to get some video for you of the fuel line setup, but I really wasn't able to because we had to go get some clamps so we can clamp down the fuel line clamps that they give you with the kit. By the time we got back, it was pretty dark, and so I just figured I would do it today. So day 2, here we are. This is what I have ran, as you can see. This is what the diagram looks like. I know I have like green marker on this. I was trying to trace to make sure, but I'll pretty much show you how this goes. So this is the FMU. You can see there's one that's coming out and there's one that's coming off the side. And if you look on here, here's the one that's on top, and here's the one that's on the side. So we'll start with the one that's coming off the top. Comes straight off the top. You actually have to cut this line. You cut it, and then these are the clamps I was talking about. It's like CV axle boot where you squeeze them together, and they give you plenty for that. They also give you these T-fittings that you put in here. So let me move this out of the way. But I can show you that I cut it. I put the T pretty much, it's about 6 or 8 inches off the top of the FMU. I have it about there, so that way the line that comes down, that comes underneath here and goes to the secondary fuel pump, you can see will kind of like fit down in this groove. The fitting that also comes on there, you can see, let me put this in here, you can see it's on the metal line where the factory fuel line would mount to. So after you take that off, then that goes there, and you can see from here, if you go off the top here, T's, and then goes down to this fitting here. So if we follow the line, it'll come up. It's loose right now because I have to trim it a little bit, but then it will come to here, and that's one done. Then if you come to the side of the FMU, you can see it's coming off the side. It comes here, up, T's off. I need to cut this back a little bit so that way the line will follow a little bit easier down underneath the car between the oil filter and the engine mount. But then it will run, and it will run to the other side. If you look, the direction of flow right here on the pump, it should be pointing towards the driver's side. So this line that's coming will come underneath the car and then come up to the other side. And this other side is the clamp. I'm trying to get it in there so you guys can see, but it's the clamp right here that would be going on the metal line. So pretty much what we're doing is we're installing this fuel, or the fuel filter in line. So it'll come out of the tank, come out, go to the FMU, then from the FMU to the secondary fuel pump, the flow will go back to the line, and it will come up here and go to the injectors. So that way it has adequate fuel for when the engine is under boost. So if you look on here, this other one is coming off the side. It tees off, this one follows, and you can see the direction arrow right here. It comes and it goes back to the T, and then that one is the one that goes to the car itself. So that being said, all we have to do now is connect this hose, and all of the fuel line stuff will be done. I'll zip tie it up. Make sure that it stays off to the side. I try and use the factory clamps that the fuel line was in to keep it away from the headers as much as possible. Heat tape's a really good thing to use also, but if you don't have it, putting it back and zip tying it against there should do the trick. I mean, fuel line from the car is already on the car, close to the headers that way, so it's not really any different. But that's the secondary fuel pump. And then obviously the line that goes to the intake manifold comes up. I have it sitting here right now. I don't have the intake manifold on yet, but that'll be an easy thing to plumb, and I'll show you that as I do that. Since the intake manifold is off, it's gonna be really easy for me to show you. The back breather on the driver's side valve cover right here, there's usually a line that comes off and it goes to like a nipple that's coming off of the intake. When you install the supercharger, you'll still use the hose that comes this way, and they give you this barb. And if you open up the air filter bag, it'll come in something that looks like this. There'll be a barb that's wrapped up in here, and they give you a piece of tubing. And what you do is you actually put the barb in the one end and put it in the other. This is the factory one. This is one from Z1, but this is like the same factory. It will sit here like this, and then you put the barb in here, and then you'll run that black hose, and where that black hose goes to is actually on the filter, and it relocates it. You can see there's a nipple coming off the filter now, and so that will complete the cycle. So I'm going to put that together right now. It'll make it really easy because I'm able to walk all the way around the engine. I can get to it, tighten it down, kind of run it how I need to this way, and then when I put the supercharger on and the filter, the hose will be waiting right here. I'll put it on and it'll be done. So I'm gonna do that now. Okay, so now we have everything buttoned back up. You can see if you did everything right and proper, it should be zip tied out of your way. The alternator It's a really tight fit in here, as you can see, but there's enough room for everything. The oil change might be a little difficult, especially on this car because we have the Mishimoto oil cooler, but everything's back to normal, all buttoned up and ready for the plate and the supercharger. Also, I was talking about earlier, this vent hose coming around. This is the one that comes with the new barb, and then I kind of have it zip tied to the coolant, just so it's clean. We'll have the intake tube is actually going to cover it, so you're not going to see it. And then this will kind of dip and come up to where the filter sits right about here, right where the frame rail's at. So this will be real easy to go up onto the nipple. So yeah, this is all back together. And now we're going to start, we have to put the top intake on. We're putting new gaskets for the Plenum spacer, but we'll put the new intake on top and then we'll start running the piping. So first thing I do is I'll run the piping that goes along here. We're also going to take off this manifold or the mass airflow housing. These 4 bolts are the ones that bolt to that square plate that go right in here. And I'll show you after it's all together. But then we're going to start doing the intake and then we'll put the supercharger on. Okay, we're starting to set up all of the clamps and the couplers, and you can see it kind of looks like a mess, but I have this one tube now put together. You can see the direction of flow when looking in. I don't know if you can see it, but the mass airflow will be open on this side and it will be down. So the orientation when it sits, it'll be sitting like this. I have the tube is all bolted together. I use the 3.5 inch. You can see on here it says 3.5 inch band clamps around the smaller 3.5 for this small elbow, and then it will sit just like this. We don't have the throttle body on yet, but the next one will be another, I think it's a step up that goes from here to the throttle body, or it's the other 3.5 inch. I'll let you know as soon as we put the throttle body on, but then the orientation, you can see it's starting to do this, and then this will be the steel tube that goes between this turn down and to the one that goes to the intercooler. So as we get farther along, I'll show you, but I just wanted to show you that this is the orientation on how this goes, sitting like that. So we have the orientation now set. You can see the throttle body is on. We have the 90. This is all 3.5. You can see on them, it says 3.5, and the 2 3.5 inch clamps that come, or the blue couplers, I mean, that come with the kit. Then we have this, you can see underneath, it's plugged in underneath, and then this comes right here. And the next piece we will be getting is, where did it go? This one, and this one's a steel one. This is not an aluminum one, or it's a thicker aluminum. I don't even know. We should get a magnet and test this. I want to test this theory.
I don't think it's magnetic. Yeah. Aluminium.
Okay, it's aluminium. Anyway, so this will go here. The reason why it's a lot thicker is because it's actually pressed between here, and I guess they were having issues with it crushing, so this is kind of how this goes, and this will sit like this, and then we'll be able to put on the one that goes to the intercooler. So this is kind of the last piece. I put this on, and then we can bolt the supercharger to the plate and bolt the plate up to here. So now all of the piping to there will be ran, and then we can finish the intercooler. So we're gonna do that now, and I'll show you the progress as we move along. Okay, now the intake charge pipe is on. You can see running down. I have the clamps. I try to make sure all my clamps are always the same way and they're easily accessible. However, this one I have pointed this way, and I have one that's actually in here. I know it's a little hard to see, but the reason why I do that is when I put the supercharger plate on and the supercharger sits right here, it's very difficult to get to here with the cog pulley here, and then the big snail sitting right here. So I try to make it as easily accessible if I need to tighten the clamps. So I have this down. This one's on, and from this side you can see it's kind of just barely sitting here. Then I'll have the one that comes down and makes a turn around the radiator support, and now I guess it's time to put the supercharger on. So then we'll have the S1 that kind of comes down, and we'll come around here, and then it's intercooler time. So the install on the supercharger itself, as well as the piping and the intercooler, is probably the easiest part on here. So that's what we're gonna do now. We have to take a couple bolts out. I'll have to take these 2 bolts out for the plate. We'll use these 2 with the supplied hardware, and then there's also one here with a spacer that will hold the plate on here, and you'll see the cutout here, but I'll get to that when we put it on. So we just got the supercharger mounted to the plate. It's kind of a big deal. Anyway, yeah, right. So we took these bolts out. You can see on here, it also says in the directions, but I can show you that you take this out of the timing cover, this out of the timing cover, this out of the timing cover, the left 19 or 17, and then these two will be used. These don't have anything in them. So first things first, before you mount the supercharger to the plate, make sure you put these long bolts in, because you can see it hits. You're not gonna get them back in. So I put all of the bolts in where they should be. You have the two long ones when you come on the inside. You have the two long ones here and here. You have the short one here. You have the supplied one for the 19 here, and the 1/2 inch spacer that kind of fits in that groove right there. That will be going right there. And then you have the supercharger bolts. There's 4 of them. The orientation, you have the blower in the, how do you say it? The furthermost down position where it's actually pointing down. So when you're looking at it on the car, it's actually gonna be pointing down this way. So then you have that on there. You tighten these down, all 4 of these. They have copper washers. And then I use the old bolt, this bolt that came out of here originally, for the pulley that tightens down the cog. And you can see it has the big spacer, then it has the step spacer and the pulley, and then it has a washer and the supplied nut. So we'll put that together when we put the cog on, but I wanted to show you the orientation of the bolt because it's very specific, and doing this by yourself is quite the pain in the ass. So now we're gonna be able to take the plate, bolt it up here, and I'll kind of show you how it goes. One other thing, you can see that there's this indentation right here that follows along. That is for this hose. I try and tuck it in there. The aftermarket ones are a little more difficult to make it work because they are thicker, so it doesn't sit in that groove as it should, but you can make it work. And so it comes like this, and then the plate will kind of sit actually in here because it kind of comes out this way. When you put it on, make sure you're not pinching it, kind of set the orientation, and then you can bolt everything to the timing cover. So we're gonna do that now. Now here's what the final product looks like. Everything is on, tight. You have the 210s here. You have the 19 here, and then you have these ones all in there, and the plate's on. You can see when you look down it, it's nice and straight, along with the belt. So yeah, pretty easy setup. We put the belt on already, can make music with it. But now is the easy part. So now I can put the coupling on here and get it for the intercooler, and then we're gonna put on the S-pipe, call it an S-pipe because it looks kind of like an S that follows down this way. So this is all done. And then we can pretty much put the front of the car back on. We're gonna have to put the front of the car back on and put the intercooler on, get that set up and situated. So I have kind of loose ends. You can see this is for the filter. This will go up into here. But other than that, the only other thing we have to do is put this on. This is for the tensioner, and this goes right here, and it'll tension the cog belt. So we'll do that also, but I'll show you after that's all done. And then we'll tighten up the 8s. I kind of left this loose so that way we can move things around, and then yeah, get it going. So let's do it. Okay, moving right along. You can see I have the S-pipe now is down. Pretty much where everything's at right here. I also have this installed here, but I have this turned back until we put the front on, and then I'll kind of swing it around for the intercooler. But everything here now is all set up. It's pretty much ready to go on. The front can go on. I don't have anything else I have to tighten or get to be able to put it all together. So we'll put the radiator back on, start getting things situated, putting the headlights back in, and then the last thing will be putting the intercooler on, and then it'll just be the wiring. And from there, the wiring's actually kind of bad. I don't know, it's not a real easy thing, especially in a car with a roll cage, but underneath here is where all the wiring will come down. We have to cut and splice, and I'll show you that as I get the box. I don't know where the controller went. It's in here somewhere. I think it's that box right there. But yeah, so I'll get that together, and then we'll start laying it out, and I'll show you the way that the wires are running along here and down and to where it needs to go and into the firewall in there. So anyway, we're gonna get this front put on now. Okay, one last thing before we put the front on, I wanted to show you that this is that big hose that comes up to the nipple that comes right off of the filter. We have it where this clamp is easily accessible from below because there's not going to be anything in here. It'll be easier to tighten it here. But this is the last thing that goes on, and now we're ready to throw the front on. All right, intercooler's on, front bumper's on. I kind of didn't show the play-by-play with this because I figure I can just explain, but we have all the bolts for the front bumper that's holding on, and then this bracket actually uses these two 12s that hold this one on, and then goes from here and uses this 10. So it pretty much sits it all the way across the way. And then this one, there's really no, you can see from Vortech that these are capped off. There's really no bracket that goes here because this holds it up enough. Sometimes I will make a bracket that I'll take this plug out and then I'll make a bracket that goes here across here. It's just like an L. I found that kind of helps, but this goes into here. It's completed all the way around, and then the last thing we need to do is put the blow off valve and hook it up to the vacuum line. But other than that, I mean, the install for the Supercharger, the mechanical part, is actually almost all the way done. Now we're just gonna have to start buttoning up this stuff and running the electrical, and I also have to mess with these lines. There's some T's that come off of here because this goes to the controller box, and then it also goes down to the blow-off valve, and it uses this port right here. That's why they give you so much line here. So after that, we'll do that, put all this together, put the plastics back on, put the box, I usually put the controller box in here, and then the wiring will run down through that cap back there. And then the last bit is just the wiring. So I'm gonna start cleaning this up, putting headlights in, or maybe I'll have you put the headlights in. And then, yeah, we'll go from there, and everything else should be good. We have to figure out where the oil cooler is gonna mount to, but am I getting in your picture?
Yeah, get out of my way.
Sorry. And then also the last thing too is the power steering. Kind of goes up like this. Those rods that came in that package, they go through these fins through here, and you just take off the 10s right here on the fans, and then you can use the clip to hold it in on the radiator. But other than that, everything will be put back together. Then we can put the bumper back on, and the front will essentially be done. The only other thing that I know that I have to do is I have to put the ground and the power to the secondary fuel pump, but I'll use the ground from here, and then I'll just use some sandpaper to clean this up, and I'll put the bolt through there for the ground, and then the power wire will actually go back up here and to the controller box. So I mean, we're like 85% done. The box is pretty empty, and we're gonna be hearing some blowy noises soon. All right, everything is wrapped up now. As you can see, I have the tee off of this line, and it's going into here because now the electronic box that uses vacuum, it comes with this little nipple. It's just a single, so that way this can actually go to this. And then this comes to here, and the extra T that comes with this box in all of the electrical stuff, there's one that goes to the manifold, and then this one goes down. I don't know if I showed, but I use the T down here that goes to the blow-off valve, and it also goes to the FMU. So everything that's needed for vacuum is now all attached. Everything's ran. Pretty clean setup. It looks kind of a mess right now because we don't have the plastics on and that stuff, but I'm going to start putting this side. This is the power for the box, and everything will go to here. Actually, when you take this off, there's a nut under here that we can put with this yellow connector that they supply. And then all of this stuff, this is all the stuff that will go down in here and will be the electrical connections for the controller. So this is the part that you have to cut and splice on the wiring for the wire harness that goes near the ECU. So this is the time-consuming part. I'll show you and explain kind of what's going on with the directions. I need to find them. There they are. And then I will let you know what's going on with that. So headlights are in. Everything up top is done. We're going to start buttoning this up, and then I'll run that down, and the last thing we'll be doing is the wiring, and then it'll be time for startup. So let's get it. Okay, welcome back, day 3. I know I've been pretty bad about showing that I'm done for the day and then I'm going to be coming back tomorrow for this, but yeah, I'm back. It's day 3, final day. We're getting the wiring all situated, and like I showed you, we have the box is now here. I have all of the vacuum lines, all of the electrical stuff. Sorry, I can't talk right now. I'm like been laying in here, starting the wiring. So let me restart that. So the electrical box, it's right here. It's sitting where it needs to be. All of this is all ran. Pretty much everything up top is done. I have the wire looms taken care of, and the last thing is just connecting the positive wire to that pump and taking care of the ground. The other thing, you can see this is part of the wiring that came. I kind of shortened it up so that way it goes together clean in here, but I wanted to show you what I'm doing. I'm not gonna go over how the wiring goes, only for the fact that everything here is all written down on Vortech thing that comes with it. It tells you right here what the wire from the controller is, and on the other side it tells you from the ECU control unit what wires should go where. However, I am right now connecting. You can see that I have the Vortech harness is now well, 4 of the wires is attached to the car, and I have the other ones up here, and then I have the red ones cut. So this is pretty much going in line with the car. What it pretty much does is it has an input from the sensors. It goes to the control box recalculates and then sends it to the ECU. So it really is a piggyback controller. So we're finishing up this. I'm gonna get the 4 other ones in there, hook up the secondary fuel pump, and then we're gonna start it. So I wanted to show you what was going on with that. Like I said, I'm sorry I've been bad about making it where it's day 3, not ending it previous. We just run out of time, run out of light. So yeah, we're about ready to start this. Okay, so the wiring now is all finished. You can see under here that the plug is now all plugged back into the ECU. There's just this little pigtail coming out right here, but all the wires are hidden underneath there. It's all sealed off, weatherproof if for some instance there's any rain that were to come in here. And you can see the wire that's coming down, but other than that, you can hardly tell that there's any wiring done to this car. Everything's getting put back together as far as the plastics and stuff up front, and then it's time to fire it. So let's start this. And just like that, it's good. Firing, running. First try, baby. And just like that, it's done. The Vortech Supercharger, the V3, is installed. It's ready to go and get tuned. How are you feeling?
Great.
Hell yeah. So that's it. I'm gonna wrap the vlog up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this how-to helped you. And yeah, stay tuned for more content. Peace. All love.